Chapter 56, The First Time I Unclenched My Stomach. For the first time in my life, the corset loosened, not because I learned to relax, but because inside me someone was growing who needed space. I got pregnant, and something strange happened. I slowed down. For the first time in my life. Vanya became tender and sweet, the way I'd seen him in Mexico, when everything was just beginning. He cared, he was present, he looked at me as if I mattered not for my function, but simply because I was carrying our child. I was calm and fluid like never before. The body, which since childhood had lived strapped into a corset, stomach pulled in, jaw clenched, neck tense, for the first time began letting go. I remember the moment I relaxed my abs for the first time, simply stopped pulling them in. The stomach I'd held tight my whole life, for posture, for control, for the illusion that I could handle everything alone, for the first time became soft, because inside it now was someone, and for that someone I could unclench. I was a very intentional mother. I decided this before the pregnancy, long before, decided it the way I decided everything in life, absolutely and irreversibly. My child would grow up differently, without beatings, without corners, without torn notebooks. Everything that happened to me would not happen to him. I was happy to learn I was pregnant. Vanya was happy too. And for a time, maybe a few weeks, maybe a couple of months, it seemed like life was finally on track, that the terrible things were behind me, that this child was my chance to do right what went wrong with my mother. But even in this calm, which was the deepest peace of my life, a crack lived. I was waiting for what everyone talked about, the hormonal rush of love, the oxytocin that was supposed to flood me with warmth, turn me into a soft, glowing, pregnant woman from the magazines. It didn't come. I was still productive at work, logical, collected, operating in survival mode, only now that mode ran quieter. I couldn't talk to my belly. Other women rubbed their bellies and whispered something tender, and I stood in front of the mirror not knowing what to say to the person inside me, as if between us was the same glass wall that stood between me and every person in my life, visible but not touching. I didn't understand why then. Didn't understand that a woman who was never loved unconditionally, who was abandoned at 6 months, beaten and thrown out, cursed and shamed, that woman can't simply, on the command of hormones, switch on what was never there. Tenderness toward a small creature requires the experience of tenderness toward your own small self, and my small self was still kneeling in the corner, not knowing it could be otherwise. For 7 years I worked on forgiving my mother. 7, 8 years of therapy, constellation work, books, practices, but not a single day, not one, did I work on my grandmother, because I didn't consider that anything was wrong with my childhood. I lived with the belief my grandmother planted so deep it became invisible. This is normal. Everyone lives like this. You are lucky. You should be grateful. And so I stood with a growing belly, in the quietest period of my life, in the only peace I'd been given, and couldn't say to the child inside me, I love you. Not because I didn't love him, but because the words got stuck in the same place where everything had gotten stuck since childhood, in the throat, behind clenched jaws, behind a bitten tongue, somewhere between not allowed and don't know how. And then something else rose. I needed to buy things for the baby, make a list, go to the store, pick out a crib, diapers, bottles. A simple task. Any woman in her 7th month has long since done this. Set up the room, wash the tiny onesies, organize them in drawers. I couldn't. Put it off day after day. The task seemed harder than calculus at university. I didn't understand why. Every time I thought about baby things, something rose inside that had no name. Not joy, not anticipation, something like rebellion. as if the hurt child inside me crossed her arms and said, "No, I won't." Tiny onesies didn't bring tenderness. They brought the urge to run. I thought, you can use a box instead of a crib. Why spend money? And then the part I hated most surfaced. Cruel, cold, the one that can't stand the weak and helpless, that can only talk to children as if they're adults, in a serious voice with high demands, without affection. A tender tone just didn't work for her. At all. I ran scenarios in my head. What will I do if he won't eat? What if he won't listen? And my reactions in those scenarios were identical to my grandmother's. And one more thing. When I saw other mothers when warm, smiling, those who rubbed their bellies and cooed, I was hit with hysteria every time, as if someone else's tenderness toward a child landed in the place where my tenderness should have been and found emptiness. In the 7th month, it all finally broke through. I looked around and saw nothing had been bought, not a single thing, and I was hit with a verdict. I'm a bad mother, before the child was even born, like her. Like my mother, who didn't come for me at nursery school, who chose the bottle over milk. I hadn't given birth yet and was already repeating. I had to go to therapist Tanya. She found the formula that was running everything. I'm not good enough. That's my motivator. I still haven't come up with a better one. And one more thing, what I couldn't say aloud, but Tanya named for me. I'm the same as my mother. No love for the child, no patience. I want to die. And that seems more noble than abandoning him. I haven't given birth yet, and I'm already repeating. So I'm bad too. Tanya said 4 words. There is nothing wrong with you. I carried them inside me for a month, like a talisman. A month after the session, the feeling still remained that who I am is right, that there is nothing wrong with me, because before that, no one, not once in 30 years, had said those words to me. By then, the uterus was already dancing. Premature contractions the doctors called a threat. The body, which had only just learned to unclench, clenched again, because the same fear that had lived there since birth rose, I'm a bad mother. But for now, there was still peace. Vanya was still tender. It still seemed like the child would change everything, that with his birth a different life would begin, one where I would finally be not an orphan but a mother, a real, warm, intentional mother who would do everything right. I didn't know that motherhood would become the very mirror in which I'd see everything I'd been running from, that the child I'd decided to protect from my childhood would show me that childhood in full, that I would become what I feared becoming. But that would come later. For now, silence, a soft belly, and the hope that this time it would work.